General Counsel, do we have a quorum?
Yes, sir, you do have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Good morning. We'll call to order the January 2019 meeting of the IHCDA Board of Directors. First item on our agenda is the approval of minutes from this December 20th, 2018 board meeting. Any questions or concerns regarding the December 2018 minutes?
Yes, sir.
Hearing none.
I'll move for approval.
Appreciate that. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Minutes are approved. Let's please welcome Peter Nelson to discuss a recommendation for the bond volume 4% credits for Ironwood Village Apartments.
Morning, Board.
Morning.
So Ironwood Village Apartments was the 13th application that we received in the 2018 bond round. It represents a total development cost of almost $10 million, requesting $6,906,232 in bond volume and $260,853 in LIHTC annually to preserve 128 units of affordable housing. So this is some garden-style apartment community located in Mishawaka. It was originally awarded 9% tax credits in the early 2000s, 2001 and 2000 as two separate phases. This project is combining those two phases to do needed rehab on this project. The community is 16 two-story buildings for the residents and an additional building that houses the leasing office, clubhouse, and laundry facilities. It's a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom unit. It's a family project, so it's mostly 2 and 3 bedrooms. And the residents will have immediate access to retail, healthcare, and community services, all within a 1 mile proximity. So it's pretty close to a lot of amenities. During the application round, we were able to review and make sure it met all the criteria set forth in the 2018-2019 qualified allocation plan. And the developer met with us on January 15th to give the real estate and executive teams an overview of the project. We've been tracking some key performance indicators for our bond projects. This one that we have on this memo and the next one that we have just showcase how many affordable units that we're producing using the bond program. And in 2018, with the projects that we've awarded, we've funded over 1,000 units of affordable housing. With that, our staff recommendation is to award the full allocation of the bond volume and tax credits to this project. I'm happy to take any questions on this.
Any questions from the board?
One question, just out of curiosity, is this the original developer that's coming back with this request, or has the property changed hands since the 2001?
This is a new developer.
It is? Okay.
They're out of Maine. They have
Okay.
a lot of tax credit experience, but it'll actually be their first project in Indiana.
Good.
Any other questions from the board?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll hear your resolution.
Staff respectfully requests the board approve the following resolution. Resolved that the board approve awarding $6,906,232 in bond volume and $260,853 in annual LIHTC to EPD Ironwood LP for Ironwood Village Apartments according to the terms of the 2018 AB application round as recommended by staff.
Move to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. You also have a recommendation regarding bond volume 4% credits for Lakeshore Manor.
Yes. Lakeshore Manor is a project in East Chicago. It was the second application we received and reviewed in the 2018 round. It has a total development cost of about $40.8 million, requesting $22 million in bond volume, $1,611,119 in LIHTC annually for 10 years, $350,092 in neighborhood stabilization program funds, and a $500,000 Affordable Housing and Community Development Fund loan to create 206 units of affordable housing. Senior housing, so DTM Real Estate Services and the East Chicago Housing Authority are proposing a new construction building to serve seniors that are going to be displaced by the demolition of the Nicosia apartment building in East Chicago. It is an old dilapidated public housing tower in East Chicago, so really replacing that is definitely needed. That building actually has 184 units, so this is an increase in the total number of units of affordable housing. All of the units, so 206 units, will have project-based vouchers. So the vouchers from the old building are going to carry over, plus the additional vouchers going in. And it will go through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's Rental Assistance Demonstration, or the RAD program. So the location for this project is really good in East Chicago. It's within walking distance to a pharmacy, a post office. It's catty-corner to a local park, and a local community center. There's a bus stop about 0.2 miles away from the site, and it's less than 2 miles from a grocery store, a hospital, and some other amenities. So this project, again, we went through and made sure they met the requirements of the 2018-2019 Qualified Allocation Plan, and the development team met with us in June of last year to give us an overview of the project. I will say we did have this project ready to go in June. That's why we met with the development team. There was a little hiccup in maybe some of the funding regarding there was some remediation that needed to be done on site. So the developer asked us to kind of hold off on the project until they were able to secure that funding. So everything was in place, and we made sure everything worked out as far as that goes. And then we were able to continue forward with the project and make the recommendation here today. And that recommendation is to recommend the entirety of the bond volume, tax credits, NSP funds, and development fund that they requested. Any questions on that project?
Actually maybe two questions, but first question is somewhat macro. If you look at this on a per unit basis, it looks like it's about $198,000 a door. Have you been hearing much from tax credit developers about just the rising costs and the difficulty of making some of these numbers work, just as an overall perspective from the folks you're working with?
Just kind of a high level, yeah, that we continue to hear that costs are rising. One thing that we have done in our QAP is we set forth a scoring criteria that kind of weights how many tax credits per unit and per bedroom they get to hopefully kind of keep down costs. Sure. But that is always a comment that we get, that there is a high level. I will say that $100,000 is really on the lower end. So they're efficiently using the dollars to create these units for this project. I'd say probably the average that I've seen, and I haven't actually tracked an actual metric on this, but we do see probably somewhere in the mid 200s per unit.
Yeah, I was just real curious about on the cost.
Hey, Pete, also, I believe this is also a Davis-Bacon development as well.
Yes.
Because it has the RAD on it, so.
Okay.
Yeah, so prevailing wages, Davis-Bacon's all apply.
All apply to this?
Yes.
Okay.
So is that what's kind of leading to that higher cost then, the
Typically-
wages or the materials or?
Yeah, typically you'll see an escalated cost when you trigger Davis-Bacon. In many cases on a bond deal, in this situation, it would not be feasible without the project-based vouchers.
Yeah.
So,
would
and it's
think it'd be
also in a
tough.
high-cost area in Lake County.
Yeah, just
So-
from a labor perspective, for sure, in Lake. Okay, thank you. That
Yeah,
was helpful.
absolutely.
And is this, time frame wise, because they're moving out of the Nicosia apartment building, what's the time frame or horizon look like for getting this up and running to get them out of that other building if there is an issue on that front?
So the East Chicago Housing Authority is working as quickly as they can to find alternatives for those tenants' displacement. I think the timing for this is they're ready to go, start construction, get up and running. But typically we see about a year and a half, I think, when a project is able to get up, if they're able to do it fairly quickly.
Okay.
So they'll be in a temporary, the residents.
They do have a
to
relocation
temporary.
plan. We were able to review it and make sure that everything was up. I don't remember off the top of my head the exact details of that, but yeah, they have a set relocation plan for those tenants.
Does any of that kind of analysis for there being a tied kind of closing of another housing development or place they live tie into the scoring on our end?
It doesn't.
Okay. That's just curious. Another question on this, when you look at kind of just the tax credit numbers, which are on the scoring sheet, on the first one, we see that it was about 2,000, and this one's 7,800. And just as we start the KPI conversation, that's kind of an interesting number. Do you see kind of a correlation between those numbers and it being based on family or affordable assisted living? Does this seem kind of in the ballpark of a project that we usually?
Which number are you referencing?
Yeah, so if
I
you
actually
go-
don't have that page, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's, the tax credit per unit is just a metric that gets put on the
Yeah.
the short sheet. And for the first project, it was around 2,000 per tax credit. This one is 7,800. And just looking at kind of the data that is kind of interesting from sitting in the back of the room and looking at these packets
Sure.
from that perspective, that seems to be a number that says a lot about what input or what things we're doing.
That is a number that I did mention earlier that
Yeah.
we track and ties into the scoring criteria. Both of these projects, so we'll compare them to the 9% rounds where we compare everything and have the list of metrics of where everyone scored. We'll compare the bond projects to the most recent 9% round. Both of these scored the highest that you possibly can as far as that goes. This one is significantly higher because it's new construction and does have, as Jake mentioned, the Davis-Bacon and other things that factor into that. So that is something that we do track and keep good tabs on.
So that would make sense, just locationally and costs, et cetera.
For sure.
Any other questions? If not, we'll hear your resolution.
Staff respectfully requests the board approve the following resolution. Resolved that the board approve awarding $22 million in bond volume, $1,611,119 in annual LIHTC, $350,092 in NSP funds, and a development fund loan in an amount not to exceed $500,000 to Lakeshore Manor LP for Lakeshore Manor in East Chicago according to the terms of the 2018 AB application round as recommended by staff.
Is there a motion?
First of all, thanks for laying that out. I'll move for approval.
Thank you. Second? Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's please welcome Jerry Bain to discuss a recommendation regarding the Affordable Housing and Community Development Fund loan for Hilltop Ridge Apartments.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hilltop Ridge is an existing property, was previously known as Farmington Estates, and it's been on our internal watch list since the watch list was created about 3 years ago. It has now been purchased by a subsidiary of House Investments. And after the renovation is completed, it will be known as Hilltop Ridge. They're hoping to change the name and change the whole reputation. It was originally developed in 2 separate phases, and it was owned by 2 separate entities. The first phase had gone through foreclosure, so the rent restrictions were gone on phase 1. And so in return for the $500,000 development fund loan, the developer has agreed to keep 16 units as rent restricted. And then there are an additional 10 units that are governed by the home program, and that runs for another like 20 years on the home. So there will be a total of 26 affordable units out of the 96. And they're gonna rehab the whole property. So, does anybody have any questions?
So just kind of a follow-up on my question from the one before on the KPI talk. This one appears we're spending $500,000 on tax credits for 16 units to stay affordable housing, which keeps the whole property under the affordable housing bubble. Is that correct?
No, and there are no tax credits
Okay.
affiliated with this. This is just a standalone development fund loan.
Okay,
So the 500,000 would keep 16 units affordable, where otherwise they would all go to market.
perfect.
Yeah,
But it was originally financed using low-income housing tax credits.
it was,
And now it's out of its affordability period. and
Yes.
So now we're going to preserve some of those units.
yes.
Yeah.
That makes sense, okay.
And it's a loan.
It's a loan, yes.
What are the terms?
3% interest, 15-year term, 30-year amortization. Those are our standard development fund loan terms.
Any other
So,
questions?
The only thing I was gonna say is if you look at it on a per door basis with what we're getting, you amortize that out, it seems like a worthy investment just over that period of time to keep those units.
If there are no other questions, we'll hear a resolution.
Staff respectfully requests the board approve the following resolution. Resolved that the board approve a development fund loan to H.I. Peru Acquisitions LLC in an amount not to exceed $500,000 for the rehabilitation of Hilltop Ridge Apartments as recommended by staff.
I'll move for approval.
And second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
With that, I'll turn it over to Jacob Sipe to give us an update from the executive office.
Thank you, Board Chair. Just one quick point here. In the packet this month, you did see the KPIs, and we're trying to develop those KPIs that are meaningful for this board to understand the impact that we're having and the tracking of some metrics for all of our programs. And obviously, this month, it was really designed to help spark that conversation to make sure that we can understand that what we're giving you is important. So just fully continue to request feedback to us on what would you like for us to include in terms of us to track on KPIs that demonstrate success or opportunities for improvement with these programs. So sometimes these are challenging because multifamily bonds are non-competitive, and we are primarily just a financial institution when it comes to issuing those. So in the tax credit. So any feedback you continue to give us, we will continue to appreciate that and try to incorporate those into these board memos. So,
Appreciate that.
yeah, because I think, we've talked about leveraging of private dollars, we've talked about units produced. Are there other things that you would like for us to share with you at the time of recommendations? So, yeah. A couple of updates here. We obviously have a federal government shutdown, and what does that mean for IHCDA? I just want to brief the board on this. On January 8th, I issued a electronic newsletter that went out that kind of summarized the situation and its impact on IHCDA and our partners. Currently, right now, we're able to pay our claims. So rental assistance, energy assistance programs, our home program, those claims that are coming in, we're continuing to be able to draw funds down and make those payments. So currently, right now, within the agency, there is no disruption. Things are moving as business as usual. So, in addition to that, the executives at IHCDA, Matt, Dave, myself, Kylene, and Rich have placed calls into our partners to have a better understanding of potential impact that's going on within the industry that's outside of IHCDA. So we made over 50 calls 2 weeks ago and continuing to solicit feedback on the status of what's going on within the industry. Some of that may be directly impacting IHCDA, some of it may not. For example, one issue is we have a couple of deals, bond deals, that are currently stuck because of environmental review or historic review that requires some kind of approval from HUD or a federal agency. We also have some FHA insurance that seems to be kind of also stalling right now at this time. So it is having, while it may not be impacting IHCDA directly, it is impacting the ability for some of our developments to close on their financing. So as it moves, if the shutdown moves into February, we currently, and I say currently because this changes within the hour, seems like, In February, we're not aware of any other disruption that we're expecting to have. So we expect to be able to have business as normal. We expect to continue to make our payments and claims, that we can process those. So everything seems to be, we anticipate everything to continue to be business as normal in February. So that's where we are. If the shutdown continues into March, begins to become some uncertainty as to what may happen. We're not clear on some of these things, but we're going to continue to monitor the situation. If we do start to hear or confirm facts, we will release more information to our partners about potential disruption. But we're not aware of anything right now. But obviously that may change as we continue to stay on top of the situation that's going on. So that's where we are right now with the federal government shutdown, and we'll continue to monitor that situation. So, but currently right now,
It's very
business.
fortunate.
Yeah, so business is normal. So yesterday was the point in time count across the state of Indiana, which is where 91 counties, with the exclusion of Marion County, did a point in time count of the homeless population. And that's where volunteers went across the state to do outreach and to have that count. I want to recognize, I don't think she's here today, but Michaela Stocks, she's our point in time analyst, and just hats off for her for really helping to coordinate that statewide effort, provide some trainings. She did just an absolute great job in coordinating multiple different all 91 counties to make sure that it was an effective and a smooth, without any disruptions on that count. And so she did a great job. I also want to recognize some staff at IHCDA who went out yesterday and was part of that outreach and volunteered to meet with some of the homeless folks and help with that count. So Jessica Chapman was out. Samantha Alexander Chenault and Shonda Banner were also out. Zach Gross, Ryan Hamlet, Matt Rayburn, Jill Robinson, Greg Stockings, and Michaela was out as well. Erica Young and Jeff Zonkiewicz and myself also went out yesterday and interviewed and filled out the necessary forms to help that count. So just really proud of the staff at IHCDA, not only to provide technical assistance, but actually roll up their sleeves, get dirty, and go out and make that happen. So we went across the state. We weren't just at one location. We were central, northern, and the southern part of the state as well. So just really
Everybody should give them a round of applause for doing
so a great job for our team. So also last week we announced the 2019 Indiana Permanent Supportive Housing Institute. That's where we take teams through about a 5-month process to develop permanent supportive housing across our state, to develop housing with wraparound services specifically targeting our chronic homeless population. And obviously that institute has been highly successful. You continue to see the data demonstrating that the homeless population in our state continues to go down. And a lot of that is because of the grassroots work that is being done, and the Institute is helping with building that capacity at the local level. So, but we have announced a couple teams, and I just want to mention the teams real quick. Inglewood CDC is going to focus on veterans here in Indianapolis. The South Bend Heritage Foundation in South Bend focused on our chronically homeless. Echo Housing in Evansville is also focusing in on the chronic homelessness. Real America is going to be located in Hendricks County in Danville, focusing in on chronically homeless, and also their mission is more related to domestic violence. So Mercy Housing will also be part of that here in Indianapolis, focusing in on chronic homelessness. And then the Wodo Cooper Group will be also focused on veterans here in Indianapolis as well. So we have really some great teams. One of these teams, Real America, is new. So, and Wodo Cooper is also kind of new as well. So just really proud of those teams, and really pulling together some great service providers and partnerships to begin to create a pipeline of affordable housing, but targeting some of our most vulnerable populations. So Right now, what's going on behind me is the issuance of our 2019 single-family bonds. We're out pricing currently for about $50 million, and those are our single-family revenue bonds. They're being sold at the public auction. Typically, we go to New York to do that. Thanks to Rich and his team, we're able to do that with technology here at IHCDA. And so RBC, our bankers, are here. Jeff Sula, Derek McGrill, and Patrick Zhang. I don't know if Jeff and they're here. Are they back in the?
I think we're back to retail pricing now.
Okay, so they're back in the room. So they're yeah, we're having fun. And so that's happening today. And it's nice that we can actually do that here at IHCDA rather than having to travel to Manhattan to do that. Saves us some money, and I think we're more efficient doing that. So, but just really proud of the team on our single-family side to get the best pricing for IHCDA on these single-family revenue bonds. And after this board meeting, the board, you're welcome to stop in and meet our RBC bankers and see what's going on. It's just a big spreadsheet with the pricing taking place. It's not real exciting, but if the public wants to see it, I'll sell tickets for $25. So, but no, it's pretty boring. Donations, right? But I think it'd be a good opportunity for the board if you're interested in seeing and meeting our bankers from RBC to see the single-family pricing taking place. So. The other person I want to recognize is the 2019 IHCDA Employee of the Year. She's not here, but you might be able to see her. She's through that glass door right there, Zanetta Scott. Zanetta was our Employee of the Year. Looks like she's she's got her headset on. She's taking calls right now, but she's working her way in. So just want to recognize you, Zanetta. Thank you for your work and everything that you've done as our Employee of the Year. So thank you. So. Give me 60 seconds, I will read to you what one of our employees here at IHCDA said about Zanetta in her recommendation. So let me just get real quick. While only I worked for IHCDA a few months before Zanetta came on board, I immediately saw positive changes when she took over her position. I can't tell you how many times I have personally witnessed her take a small or large issue and quickly crank out a solution that makes everyone's lives easier. She is constantly thinking on her feet and juggling 6 different balls in the air to keep our agency running smoothly. I think she motivates all of us to be eager to learn and take genuine interest in the good things our agency produces. It might be easy for someone to come into Zanetta's position and treat it as a low-impact, minimal-effort job that does not require much creativity, but Zanetta has never once taken that approach. Every day I'm thankful that she is part of our crew and that she pushes each of us to keep growing as an agency. So thank you, Zanetta, for everything that you've done. You definitely deserve to be our Employee of the Year. So.
I love my job or I wouldn't be able to do this.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, and then lastly, our February board meeting will be here at IHCDA on February 28th at 10 a.m. We are currently working and finalizing the schedule. I think we're going to be on the road maybe 3 or 4 times, with 2 of those being here in Indianapolis and then 1 in southern Indiana and then 1 in northern Indiana. But we're finalizing that schedule probably this week. So that's it. That's my update.
Well, thank you, Jacob. I want to thank you and your entire team for going out for the homeless count. I appreciate your efforts in that. I know there's always a lot to do in these buildings, but to get out and reconnect, it makes a big difference in all of our minds and all of our lives. So we appreciate the efforts of the entire agency for that support. Is there any other business to come before the board?
I just have one comment. You talk about homelessness going down. If there's any way to prepare something for the board, just an idea of what metrics mean and what that means number-wise, just to try to see the impact that is happening over time. And because obviously that's a big issue, and the more we can drive that number down, obviously.
We do, yes, we have scheduled that as one of our board updates. We didn't do a board update this month, but we do have that scheduled to give you an update on the homeless count. The point-in-time count will actually become official probably around June is when we release it, or May. But then in addition to that, there's other data and metrics that we can share with you through the Homeless Management Information System that we track pretty closely and give you some more detail in the weeds of some of that data. But we plan to do that, but it'll probably be a little bit later in the year.
And I understand the complexities as it relates to downtown Indianapolis. We're at a meeting together talking about it. It would maybe be helpful to create some type of description on some of the limitations that you have as it relates to some of the things going on. So a lot of times people's perceptions are what you see, right, on a daily basis, where it's a little more complicated for IHCDA to effectuate change there. So I think that would maybe be helpful in having people understand that, especially as you see the rest of the state
Yeah.
with such great numbers. But I think some perceptions may be skewed because of some of the complexities right here, so,
We'll do that.
okay, thanks.
I just think it's a great story if we can,
Yeah.
with everything that gets done here, and I think telling that story
Absolutely.
is good.
To along that story, I should also mention, the Indiana will be hosting the Corporation for Supportive Housing Annual Conference, in April. They have held that conference, and the reason why they're coming to here is because of the work that's being done, when it comes to permanent supportive housing, the impact that we're having. And just really proud of our ability to be able to be recognized, and to attract a conference like that here, to demonstrate and for folks can come around the country and see firsthand and experience some of the work here in Indianapolis and across the state of some of the best practices that can be replicated in other states as well, so.
Is that a fairly good-sized group?
Yeah, I think there's about 600 people is what they're expecting, yeah. So.
If there is no other business, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much for attendance today. Appreciate it.
So Rich will,
Tracy.